That's good. Yeah, you'll hear people say it's 50-50. It's not 50-50. Both sides have to give 100% to make a marriage work. And just for the sake of those of you who weren't in the auditorium when he said it, Will snuck out here early, Will Wasden. I'll give him full credit for this because I don't want it. And he said the best advice he ever got was, she's always right. Someone else? So go ahead. Don't get married. Oh, that's hilarious. Okay, for those of you at home, he's quoting the Apostle Paul about marriage. He said, don't. If you're not married, don't seek to be married. If you are, don't seek to be unmarried. But okay, so a lot of input here. Let me throw out some thoughts here. I read this online, and I am not recommending this website because I know nothing about them. I'm just telling you where I got this information, okay? It's called Best Life Online, and they put down 50 of the best marriage tips from couples who've been married 50 years or longer. 50 of the best marriage. Now, I'm not going to give you all 50. I do want to give you a few of them, though. It said, let your partner know you're thinking about them throughout the day. Another one, let them express their feelings first. Now, typically in a marriage, you have one person that's more aggressive than the other. And the one that's more aggressive is generally sharing their opinion first, and it generally closes off the discussion. I like that advice. Back off. Let the other person express their feelings, and then fill in from there. The next one, imagine, I love this one. Imagine what your life would really be like without them. I can tell you that when Melinda and I got serious together, my life was in a mess. And I've shared with you some of my testimony. She was very much part of the way God brought me back to Him. And I start thinking about what my life would be like without her. Not just in the here and now, but how it would have been all through those years. It would have been a horrific mess. I probably wouldn't still be here. And I just like that thought. Stop and think. It would make you, most likely, it would make you appreciate your spouse a whole lot more. Be physically affectionate with one another. Learn to compromise. Man, I tell you what, if you don't know how to compromise, you're going to have a hard marriage. Learn to give. Doesn't always have to be your way. End the night on a positive note. Make sure you have the same financial priorities. Going back to premarital counseling. Don't be afraid to seek professional help when there's problems you can't overcome. Realize that, I love this one too, realize that you will fight. You will have arguments. You will have fusses in your marriage. Very few are the marriages that never have fights. But then, know that you're a team, no matter what. And when you're having these fights, these arguments, you're a team. And therefore, what does a team do? They work together to accomplish something. You're a team working together to accomplish victory over what you're fighting about. Reminisce. I like this one too. Reminisce about why you fell in love. I think that helps keep it alive. Make your partner feel wanted. I like this one too because I think, I'm just going to talk out of my own experience. I was one that showed love to Melinda in the way I liked to experience love. For me, that's small gifts or words of affirmation. Melinda experiences that in a much different way than I do. Quality time, one of her big ways of feeling loved. I think it's something that requires thought and effort on our parts that we actually pause and think, okay, what would make my spouse feel wanted? Not what would make me feel wanted, what would make my spouse feel wanted? How do I do that? How do I go about it? I really like that. Show gratitude. What did Apostle Paul say? In all things, be thankful. All things. And learn to really apologize. Really apologize. Not a half-hearted apology that's masked through pride, but really apologize. Well, let's get to the book of Song of Solomon. I want to start with this question for you. What do we know about the Song of Solomon? Let's kind of set the stage here. What do we know about the Song of Solomon? Anybody have insight on that? Okay, exactly. It's a love story. There is communication between, at the first of the book, through the first 4 chapters, the engaged couple, that being Solomon, King David's son, to this Shulamite woman. And they're communicating back and forth their heart, their desires. And so it's a love story between Solomon and his intended. The verses that we're going to look at, verses 13 through 15. Chapter 2, Song of Solomon, chapter 2, verses 13 through 15. And what I want you to pay attention to is as we read through this, I want you to because it is very picturesque in the way that they're talking, but there is a deeper meaning behind the pictures that are being given. So I want you to find the best of your ability, determine what it is they're discussing here. And then I also want you to notice that at one point in these 3 verses, verses 13 through 15, there is a sudden shift in terminology, a sudden shift in what's happening. Pay attention to that shift as well, okay? Let me read these verses. The Shulamite woman is talking here. The fig tree ripens its figs. The vines are in blossom. They give forth fragrance. Arise, my love, my beautiful one, and come away, O my dove, in the clefts of the rock, in the crannies of the cliff. Let me see your face. Let me hear your voice. For your voice is sweet, and your face is lovely. Catch the foxes for us. For the little foxes, the little foxes that spoil the vineyards, for our vineyards are blossoming. Did you notice the stark transition, the change that took place? In Solomon's day, the little foxes that are being discussed here were viewed as very destructive animals. In our day and time, if you have chickens, my nephew and niece have chickens, and the little foxes around will get out and get their chickens or get the eggs and bring a lot of destruction. In this day and time, the foxes would destroy the vineyards. I don't fully understand what all was going on. I've heard it explained in the past, and I didn't take time to look it back up to figure it out again, but they would destroy very valuable vineyards, and they were greatly despised, something that was very destructive in nature. So the Shulamite woman and her beloved Solomon are verbalizing their love for each other, and suddenly you come across this confrontation almost of the little foxes. Catch them for us. Now, what's going on here? Okay, so the blossoming vineyard spreading the fragrance in verse 13 refers to their growing romance that's between them. The foxes in verse 15 represent the potential problems that could damage their relationship. So the command that she is given, in essence, is saying, we've got to take these preventative measures to protect our love from anything that could harm it. That was very good advice for them in Solomon's day. I would imagine it's very good advice for our day as well. In Solomon's day, now I know I'm asking you to think back, 3,000 years, and we don't really know what life was like back then, but I want you just for fun to imagine what could have been something that interfered or caused damage to their relationship. Remember that through the first 4 chapters they're engaged, but engagements in their day and time was pretty much equivalent to marriage, just without the physical intimacy at that point. So it was still very serious. And so she is asking for help to fight off the problems and the damage that could be done from these little foxes. Think about that in relationship to life itself. What could have been those things that were potentially damaging to their relationship? Okay, other women. Solomon had an issue there, didn't he? 300 wives, 700 concubines, I believe was the number. Other women could have definitely been a great issue in their marriage. That was the first one I put down too. What else? Get wild in your imagination here. Just okay, idolatry. I didn't even think about that. What was the problem? God had told them that he shouldn't have wives from different countries, because what would happen? They would turn his heart away from God. And that's exactly what was happening. Something else? Okay. Spending too much time in the office. As Solomon's ruling a kingdom, he could have easily been working around the clock. Can you think of anything else? I just thought of one more. It's like I say, it's just a wild thought here, but maybe he had his old horse for a year and a half now, and he's ready for a new one. So he was going out to the different countries and checking out the latest editions, kicking the hoofs, and whatever he was trying to find, and he was spending a lot of time away from his intended while he was looking for that new horse. Well, that's neither here nor there. It's not very applicable to us in those terms, but there are a lot of things that could generate problems in our day, right? A lot of issues. What can you think of that could potentially be a little fox that would just begin to eat away at the marriage and bring destruction in our day and time? What would fall into that category? Relatives. It's true, isn't it? It's sad, but it's true. In a lot of cases, relatives can try to bring division. Mm-hmm. What else? Social media. The amount of time that we spend on our computers or our phones is staggering, isn't it? I mean, it's pitiful. And therefore, it's bringing division. It's bringing destruction to the marriage, because you're not having the communication that is needed. What else? Okay, finances. Finances. If we haven't had marital counseling, if we haven't established this up front, and I can tell you this was a problem for Melinda and me. She was very conservative. I'm not when it comes to spending in our family. It took me years to get to the place to where being financially secure was an issue. It's embarrassing to talk about, honestly. I was going through a class, a pastor's class. They were just teaching us different aspects of being a pastor. And this has only been maybe 15 years ago. And one of the things that was brought out was you talk to your church about taking care of what God gives you God's way. You're talking about that in relationship to the church. How are you doing that in your own life? And it was really a slap in the face for me. It's one of those things that just, oh, wow. And God really brought me full circle, and it made a huge impact. I mean, we're out of debt now. Made a huge impact in my life, and therefore gave additional strength and security to my wife, which absolutely blessed our marriage. It always works that way. Finance is a big issue. What else could we say? Okay, that is a wonderful thought. And just for those at home, being so rigid with finances that you become a dictator. I find this illustration so humorous, and it comes from my family. It's not from me or Melinda in this case, but it's from my family, so I feel comfortable sharing it. I'm not going to tell you who said it, but I do feel comfortable sharing it. This couple was in a store, and one of the parties picked up a 99-cent pack of cookies. Now, this is a long time ago. You probably can't find those anymore unless there's two of them in a pack or something. But 99-cent pack of cookies, and put them in the cart. And the other spouse said, "You're not getting those." "I am too. I want some cookies." We're not spending money on cookies. "No way we're going to do that." He said, "I've got enough money in the bank to buy this whole row of cookies if I want to. I'm spending 99 cents. And this person ended up leaving without the cookies, by the way. But on a very serious note, though, what Mr. Turner said is so true. That we can become so rigid with finances that it becomes a hindrance to our marriage. Can you think of anything else? Politics. Boy, I tell you what, that's one of those things we go right back to. That should have been established before marriage. It's going to be an issue. What do we believe? How are we going to raise our kids? Politics can be an issue. Just for the sake of time, I also thought about activities. Sometimes, go back to myself. Our early years of marriage, Cameron was just a little girl. I was on 3 softball teams. It was so important back then, and how damaging it was. Now, more than anything, Cameron says she doesn't remember that. She doesn't remember it being that way. She went with us to the game, so she was there with us. But for me, it's living with the regret of it. Not spending those evenings with my family, my wife and my daughter. I had to be out playing ball somewhere. Those regrets will eat you alive. I also thought about friends. Friends can occupy so much of your time, and it be totally pure and honest, but they can take away so much of your time that you don't invest it in your own family. Activities, power, position, wanting more of that, and therefore you're not at home. The need for recognition. A big one, I think, probably encompassing all the things we've already talked about, is pride. Pride is so destructive. I was reading some things in preparation, and I ran across a guy that I don't know this guy. And therefore, I'm not recommending him to you, but what he said was incredible. He said, here are some little foxes that many that may trouble couples. He listed 4. Uncontrolled desire that drives a wedge of guilt and mistrust between couples. Mistrust and jealousy that strains or breaks the bond of love. Selfishness and pride that refuses to acknowledge wrong and fault to one another. an unforgiving attitude that will not accept an apology. There again, that's just a pride issue. When we come back to the passage now, she uses the phrase, catch the foxes for us. Now, there's a slight shift here that needs to be acknowledged. We're not going to spend a lot of time on it, but there is a slight shift because in our minds, to deal with these little foxes, who needs to deal with this? Okay, both parties, the spouses do. It's 100% both ways. Spouses need to be working on this. But what is she saying? She's talking to a third party. Catch the foxes for us. Okay, these little problems that are working to destroy our marriage, either they've already started working on it or they're trying to weave their way in to get access. We need a third party to step in and help us in this. Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? Third party. Let's forget about Solomon's day. Let's just bring this to our day. Who do you think could be the third party? I think there's a number of people that could fill this role. Who do you think could be the third party that would fit in to help catch these foxes, to bring them out from where they're causing destruction? Did you say parents? Marriage. Okay, a marriage counselor. Absolutely. You know, for some people, they view marriage counselors as something for which to be embarrassed of. And yet, my goodness, if there's somebody out there that can help me overcome a problem or an issue in my marriage, wouldn't I be foolish not to reach out to them? I think it's important, and this is one that we're going to discuss a little bit later on, but since you brought it up, let me go ahead and say it. It's important that it be a Christian marriage counselor. If they're not basing the information they're sharing with you on the Word of God, then where's it coming from? Maybe it's really good information, or maybe it's straight from the pit of hell. Maybe it's going to lead you to a stronger marriage, a more God-honoring marriage, or maybe it's going to lead you to divorce. And so it's important from where you're getting that information. Okay, who else could be someone that would be helpful in capturing the foxes? Okay, the pastor. Teaching. Pastor, teacher, small group leader, teaching the Word of God faithfully. Directing people to Jesus Christ. Directing people to be focused on God and not themselves. Who else? Okay, and you're jumping into something we're going to talk about in a minute as well, but let's go ahead and address it. An older, mature couple. It's something I learned from my dad. In fact, when Melinda and I were going through premarital counseling, this was one of the things he said. You find an older couple and you go talk to them. Can we come to you with questions? Can we come and ask you questions? Someone that's a little bit older, that has been a little longer in marriage, maybe 5 years or more longer in marriage, because they probably already faced everything you're going to face. There's nothing new under the sun. Solomon also said that. Therefore, the problems we encounter are problems that those who've gone ahead of us have already encountered. And most likely, there are some very logical ways to deal with these problems we encounter. I've mentioned it from the pulpit before, but for Melinda and me, it was who squeezed the toothpaste in the middle of the tube. When we first got married, if I squeezed it in the middle of the tube, she was all over me. I transitioned to where I accepted that, and I started squeezing at the bottom, and then she started squeezing in the middle. We just reversed roles, and it was problematic. There was a simple solution, right? Jerry Duncan said, get your own tube of toothpaste. Let her squeeze it where she wants to. Pretty smart. But in that situation, I didn't see that. I couldn't see that. We probably couldn't afford a second tube of toothpaste at the moment anyway. But can you think? Okay, Gary, you said parents. Parents as well. And how key. Now this is one of those areas that in a lot of ways has to be invited, doesn't it? You have to be invited to give input, and even then you have to be careful. A lot of times our kids don't really want to hear what we have to say. It is so hard because we can see so well the mistakes that they're making, and we could offer so much help, but they don't really want to hear it from us. There will come a time, at least it has been this way for us, that your children come back and all of a sudden they value your input. But you can't give too much. You have to deal with that prayerfully. And then it might be that even then good advice would be, you know what? Have you ever thought about talking to and give them direction to a couple that maybe can speak more directly to them than you would be able? But obviously, parents should be the first line of defense because we can see things that others can't. And a lot of times also, we have the ability to speak more directly, although we have to be careful with that. Oh, I tell you what, let's jump ahead a little bit. It would probably serve us well, regardless of how long we've been married, to pause and look for the little foxes in our own lives. What is it that could be working its way in to destroy our marriages? Because the truth is, it's not just young people that have marital problems, not just kids that have issues that lead to divorce. It happens with people our age. I'm not naive enough to think that I couldn't be drawn away in lust to do something that I would forever regret. I'm not naive enough to think that I've reached some sort of spiritual plateau that would prevent that from happening in my life. There are other people who are a lot stronger Christians than me, at least from what I see on the outside, that have been led astray. So then it would be wise of us just to stop and say, okay, well, what are those little foxes in my own life that's eating away at my marriage? Is it too much time on television or social media? Is it finances, one way or the other? Is it lust or pornography or whatever else? Anger, bitterness, lack of communication. What is it that's eating away at my marriage? And I think it would be wise for us just to pause even now and say, okay, well, what could that be? So just take a second and think through that. For those of you at home, do the same thing. Take a moment. So when we identify those things in marriage, what do we do about them? How do we catch the foxes? I want to throw out some thoughts for you, and then we'll be finished. Number one, I think if you're serious about it, that you begin the process with prayer, humble prayer. Humble prayer. I think it begins personally, personal prayer. God, I've identified these things in my life, and I'm sorry. Either it is sinful, or because it's destroying my marriage, it is destructive, therefore it's sinful, either way you look at it, I guess. God, I'm sorry. I confess this as sin to you. I've allowed this to get a foothold and start to bring a destruction to my marriage. And a lot of times you go back and you try to find the root of it, and you're going to find it's pride. Once you've prayed about it personally, then I think you pray about it between the spouses. You get your spouse involved. Yeah, here's something that needs to be added to that in order to pray about it together. The second thing is that you confess what it is to your spouse. You share it. And that's hard, isn't it? I mean, especially if it's dealing with something that is sinful. Whether it's just on the verge of getting into sinful, something that leads into deep sin and therefore destruction, or it's just blatant sinful. But that you go to your spouse and you confess it. Now, here's a warning, I think, for spouses in this. If your spouse comes and confesses something like that to you, you have some options. You can blow up and you can let out everything you feel inside. And maybe there's nothing wrong with doing that initially. But I think that there's also a place to realize or to consider, why is he telling me this? Or why is she telling me this? Is it because they want to save the marriage or to make the marriage healthier? And if so, then should I, with grace, accept what they've said and say, okay, I don't like what you've been doing. And it hurts me deeply that you've done this. But I want you to know we are a team and we're going to work through this together. I can assure you that if you approach it full-blown anger and shame, that the opportunity to ever hear transparency and deep honesty come from your spouse again has probably just been squished. Probably won't ever happen again. But if you approach it with grace, okay, I don't like it, and we've got to deal with it. We're going to hit this head on. There's probably the opportunity for some really deep intimacy starting to take place there. Very beneficial. Confess it to your spouse. Ask for forgiveness. Ask for forgiveness. You can confess it, but without asking for forgiveness, it's basically saying, yeah, I did it. But to take that next step and say, I really wish you would forgive me. And then to ask your spouse for accountability. That's also a hard step. But I think that's pretty important. Okay, you know me better than anyone. You see me much more than anybody else. Here's some things that happen when I'm starting to allow that fox into my life. Can you help me? Can you help me with that? Watch for these things. The next thing is what was mentioned, and I can't remember now who said it, but seek an accountability partner. Seek an accountability partner. Someone who's older than you, both age-wise, but also in the faith. And someone that will shoot you straight. Tell you straight. You probably don't want somebody that's a people pleaser, because they're more concerned about sparing your feelings. I say that as a people pleaser. I recognize that I have difficulties in counseling because of that. I'd rather spare your feelings. I've gotten a little better at that as I've gotten older, but it's still an issue for me. So you would want to get someone that's just going to tell you like it is, in love, but they're going to be direct with you. And then make sure God has first place in your lives. These are not necessarily in order of importance. Make sure God has first place in your life, in your quiet time, your family's devotion, in your church attendance, small group attendance, in serving God and giving to God. You put God first, you draw closer to God, and just as, oh my goodness, who just said that? Nadine, was it, Ann? Gary? Okay, yeah. As this triangle, you get closer to God, you get closer to each other. So true. The next part of this was also mentioned. Find a couple that you trust that's been married a little longer and ask them questions. And then I think it's important in this, ask them to be honest with you. Same thing. Give them permission to hurt your feelings. Remember that it's not your feelings that are important in this. It's the marriage. Give them permission to be direct with you. If they share something with you from their marriage, being transparent and trying to help you, then keep their trust. Protect them. You're going to be sharing things with them you don't want shown or shared. You do the same for them. And then the final thing was also mentioned, if there are problems you can't reach a resolution on or about, find a Christian counselor. We have people at our church, or not at our church, but that we recommend from our church that have been incredibly beneficial for other marriages. And I would encourage you, if you don't know someone, reach out to one of the pastors here. We can direct you to someone that would help you, or be beneficial for your children, your grandchildren, whatever the case may be. Any thoughts, questions? All right, let's pray. Father, thank you for our time together. And I realize that because this is a Wednesday evening, probably talking to people who are pretty committed to you. But I also understand that even those of us that would claim to be committed also have our struggles. And so I pray that this will be beneficial in our lives, but maybe it also is information that we can share with someone else who is seeking that help. I pray that you will use it for your glory. Thank you for this group of people. Thank you for their heart for you. I pray that you will grow them in that desire to serve you more deeply this week. For it's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Thanks for being here.